How about we go and take a quick look at some of those changes that have been made to the roster and learn a little bit more about both teams that are going to be matching up in game number 1 tonight.
MIBR landed on the second stage of BR6 with a problem. Felipox's shoulder injury. On Saturday, with Bodega standing in, MIBR narrowly lost to FaZe by 7-5. The next day, an even worse result, as MIBR was obliterated by NIP 7-1, even with Felipox playing. But Furia finds themselves in the same boat, as they also lost their debut against Team 1 7-5. Furia have an added motivation this time around after losing out against MIBR during the inaugural stage of the competition. They will have to dig deep if they hope to reverse their fortunes this time around.
Por eles terem jogado com Complete, eu acho que foi jogo que eles vieram com mais ideias e fugiu pouco do que a gente tinha estudado deles, mas eu acho que foi bom jogo, foi jogo pegado.
O confronto com a Furia no primeiro turno era na segunda semana nossa de jogo, o Lucas tinha acabado de ser diagnosticado com Covid e o trade estava completando pra gente, então foi um confronto meio de inspiração pra gente. E mesmo com o Complete, mesmo com o 3, a gente conseguiu levar a vitória por 7-5, então acho que foi uma partida muito importante pra gente pro restante do campeonato.
Each stage of BR6 will keep the points from the previous, and there are fewer and fewer opportunities as time goes on to recover those lost points and catch up.
O jogador que a gente mais tem que ficar de olho hoje é o Reduct, né? Por ele ter uma das miras mais robóticas do cenário. Acho que todo time fica pouco em choque na hora de jogar contra ele.
Cara, eu acho que sempre tem que ficar de olho no Fantão, né? Porque ele sempre pode surpreender ali. Mas só ficar de olho nele ali que o cachorro dog mal ali, burro demais. Vem de boa de counterar.
Will MIBR be beaten by the effects of a roster change? Will the Panthers know how to use the opponent's momentary fragility in their favour? This is what we'll find out next in the clash between MIBR and Furia.
So, 2 heavy hitters to start off game number 1 of the evening, and they're also very closely matched, not only in terms of the rosters and how well they play against each other, I think in terms of the stand-in as well. Currently, I believe 2 points between the two squads. Gio, do you think tonight is the night for Furia to start closing that gap up onto MIBR?
It certainly could be. They still looked pretty decent last week, but again, I think Fury also just need a bit of time to warm up, and they didn't get 2 games on week 1. They have what it takes. They really could. When we look at the game that they played against each other last stage, which Ollie already said, there was a sub for MIBR in that game as well. It was a 7-5 victory to MIBR. So it was quite a close game from that sense. And Furia have looked better and better since then, because that was very early on in stage 1 as well. So I certainly think the Furia have what it takes. I think that all of the other players who aren't just Fantasy and Lender need to kind of reach where Fantasy and Lender were back in the last Playday, because they looked like they were taking a bit to get there. But if they can, this could totally be their game.
Look, every team has its star players every now and then. The question is, can the rest of the squad close up and kind of pull the rest of them together? Because a lot of the time, you know, you'll have a game or two where 1 or 2 players really shine. Ollie, do you think that the rest of the squad are there? Are they capable of all being at the same level? Or is it one of those situations where sometimes you get 1 or 2 players that are able to just do so much work for their squad and just frag out consistently before the rest of the team even get the chance to take any shots?
I mean, yeah, kills is one thing, isn't it? And that's, you know, we try and shed light onto every role, just so that we're not sort of focusing just on those kills. But at the end of the day, Siege is an FPS, and you have to be able to win your gunfights to be able to win your rounds. So there is an element of that does come back in, and it kind of goes hand in hand with one another. For me, one of the best players on the side of Fury is actually Rare. He's a really good support player, and his stats reflect that. So for me, it's something that they have that contribution outside of the kill department. Yeah, sure, we've got, you know, Fantasy popping off and Lender, but at the end of the day, we have seen every single one of these players go out there and get frags, and we know that they're all capable of putting the work in behind the scenes as well, in terms of the comms, the call out, and all that sort of support stuff that goes on hand in hand. So yeah, for me, it is a real team effort, and I think that Furia are that team that have that sort of depth.
Let's see how the team do decide to play things, though, when it comes down to the map veto, because that is such an important aspect of Siege here, Gio. For a casual viewer, explain what are the differences between these major maps. Why would a team want to go for one style of map over another as we go through it? And maybe when we get down to that last map, you can give us some insight on why the team chose that map.
Well, I mean, in Siege, you can kind of split the maps down between the more strategical maps and the more gunfight heavy maps. So the aggressive maps, you'd be looking at something like Consulate, like Coastline, like Chalet. Villa, Oregon, and Cafe would all come under that banner of the more strategical maps, I think. And it doesn't surprise me that MIBR got rid of Villa straight away. That was the map that they really struggled on in week 1. So at least they've learned from the mistakes of that. But it looks like we're going to be going to Clubhouse, which is the map that these two played on back in stage 1. It's also one of those more strategic maps. And in fact, Clubhouse is almost known for being so methodical and systematic in the sense that there is almost a checklist that you go through when playing on Clubhouse. Everyone knows the general steps that you would take. Although I will say, in LATAM especially, they have slightly altered those. So you do see a slow evolution with what happens on Clubhouse, but the overall idea of the map stays the same.
Yeah, it is interesting, though. You mentioned how a couple of the maps that were actually banned earlier are a bit more strategic. Ollie, how come, if the teams were banning these more strategic maps early, we end up on a map like Clubhouse, which is very methodical, very slow until the end of the round hits, then the action starts to kick off? Do you think it is a case of trying to avoid them and maybe going for a more, fraggy, puggy style of map? Or is it a case of, hey, this is a strong map for both teams, let's just try and leave it in the map pool as long as possible?
Clubhouse is a map everyone knows how to play. Everyone knows how to play every map, but everyone really knows how to play Clubhouse. And for me, that's probably why it's been left in. It's a good leveler map. It's a great map for getting that defender side first as well. So that kind of starts to play into it as well when you get toward the latter half of those bans, Chalet being the last one to be removed. It's probably a little bit too early in the season to be seeing too much Chalet and stuff coming on through. So for me, Clubhouse makes a lot of sense. And don't forget, they are sticking to the script. This is the exact script that we gave them for stage 1, and they are following it nicely now for stage 2.
It is nice to see things kind of get repeated, but the question is the scoreline going to be the same? Is the victor going to be the same? Because that's the important thing we have to take into account. Sure, it's cumulative scorelines, so things change slowly throughout the BR6, but they still change. Gio, I know it's a lot of pressure, but which team are you thinking might be the favorite coming into this after we have had a long break and both teams have had the chance to make changes and make improvements?
Honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards Furia, mostly because of the sub situation going on with MIBR. They took Bodega out for Playday number 2, so that means they don't have that extra Playday with him to have gelled in. They will have had to have looked back, watched the VODs, really study what went wrong in week number 1 and trying to implement all of the changes they would have come up with for this one Playday. I don't think it's possible that they can fix all of it in one go. So even though I do expect to see an improved MIBR, I suspect that we will still see flaws that could hurt them enough for Furia to take this one.
Ollie, we're making changes to MIBR because they're playing with the substitute. They're having to switch up their game plan probably quite a bit when you don't have a strong presence who is familiar as part of the team. What I want to know now, Ollie, is will the changes be enough? Can they close it? Are you going with Gio? Are you saying no, Fury should be able to take it? Or maybe MIBR are going to be able to surprise us, close the gap, and make it a really close game?
I mean, I said earlier, I'm giving it to Furia, honestly. For me, it really is as simple as that. Clubhouse, it's almost too checklist to play with the sub, and we saw that sort of happen last time when MIBR played it. They were very close rounds. That 7-5 could have very easily gone either way. And sure, that's a player that's substituting him, but this is Bodega, and that is no slight against the guy whatsoever. But he isn't a professional. He isn't a pro. He's a coach. And the things that you've got to do as a player on club are not always that simple. You start thinking about some of the, something really simple like specific impact trick spots, specific, usage of utility, getting your flashbangs out there, whatever it might be. It isn't always just as simple as going and doing it. And I think that's likely where we're going to see MIBR get unstuck. More than likely on the attack is where they're going to find a little bit of problem.
Look, I know you guys are both going for Furia, but I feel like MIBR, they've had a week to work on it. We might be able to see things switch up. It's going to be an interesting one indeed. I don't know, though. It's going to be a tricky one. We absolutely know. The real question now is how is it going to unfold when we're on a map like Clubhouse where you do have to check every angle. Geo, when it comes to playing with a coach, how tricky is that going to be? How much real experience does he have competing at this high level? Or is he just, you know, he puts a lot of hours into ranked games, things like that. But is it able to transfer over when you're in a format like this?
I mean, like, one thing that we should remember, of course, is that Bodega being their coach, he'll be very aware of all of the strategy. I mean, he'll know exactly what he's meant to be doing, but he doesn't have any actual, you know, competitive experience as a player. And I don't want to talk down on that as if that's a bad thing or as if that makes him lesser. It just simply means he doesn't have as much experience where you really kind of nail those things down and you get the reps in and, you know, so on and so forth. And we did see from last week that he's certainly a capable and competent player, but it's where you get that question of is the capability and the competency enough? And it's a very similar discussion to what was had about SSG when Luke came and stepped in to make up for the fact that Canadian had left the roster. Luke was a perfectly fine player, but did he have that edge and did he have the experience that makes you as elite as the players who had been on the team for a really long time? So I want to be very careful about the way that we talk about Bodega in this situation because first and foremost, it is a huge deal that he's even stepped in to do this. The stuff with Felipox, the fact that he's hurt his shoulder, that's not something that anybody would have foreseen, and it's something that they've had to make some kind of contingency plan probably quite late in the game. From what I heard, it was not something they had a ton of time to deal with. So he's doing a great job. It's just a question of, does he have that edge?
We will find out soon enough, I'm sure, because game number 1 of the evening is about to get underway. Ollie, Geo, take it away.
Thank you very much indeed, Chunks. We are going to be Clubhouse. We have Furia versus MIBR for map number 1 tonight. I'm excited about this one, Geo. The thing that I like the most is we've seen this game play out how many months ago? 3 months ago, 4 months ago? And we're going to get to see it play out now again. Now, sure, it's not under the best of circumstances, but can Furia get one up? Can they level the scoreline at 1 apiece?
I would like to see that happen. I just think from a storyline perspective,
yeah,
it just builds this rivalry, right? You know, especially as MIBR, they did so well at SI. They were just 1 game off of making it into the grand finals. And you've got this kind of hotshot team who no one really paid a ton of attention to back in 2020. They're hot on your heels and they're catching up. And I do like that idea. The interesting thing as well about Clubhouse for me is that when you looked at the statistics, Furia have only won it once in the last 6 times that they've played it. And that was against Cyclops at SI. So they haven't won it against a Brazilian team at all. This would be the first time.
Well, let's see if it is going to be the first time. Getting the bans come through. What's happened, Gio? We've reverted back to
this is so
the old
normal.
ways.
It's so normal. I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest.
That's, I was expecting like a Flores, like get something exciting going on, but no, we are going to see. I mean, I don't know why we're complaining. The Thatcher, the Hibana, the Valkyrie, and the Mirror means that the Flores is going to be in play. And of course, it is going to be used. Fancy, for the meantime, going to be picking onto that. Now, for me, that's kind of polar opposite to what he's known for. We're going to see the 6th pick off, so just using it as a little bit of a bait for the time being. But still, the threat of the Flores is there. And it's probably quite a good play. You're not likely to go upstairs to see CV Room and Cash first. If MIBR see that, they're going to want to go and try. They're going to try and go downstairs in round number 1 regardless. So it just leaves it in everybody's mind.
MIBR have got quite a solid anchor setup here as well, or they haven't got the setup yet, but the fact that they've brought 2 anchor operators I think is pretty big. It means they have 2 shields available to them. It means that they, they definitely going to have that strength on the site, which I think will be something that helps them a lot, because let's say Bodega, who very interestingly, was leaning into the hard support last week and this time has been put on a roamer. Let's say he gets picked off early, you're still going to have a really strongly reinforced and fortified site downstairs that's probably going to make it quite difficult for the attackers to breach regardless. I think it's quite a smart decision to put Bodega on Vigil, if I'm honest. If he gets value out of it, great. If he gets a pick, even better. If he gets picked off early, it's probably not the end of the world because you still have kind of an anchor-heavy defense downstairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Just gas him up, send him out there on the roam. Doesn't even really need to play with the players that are upstairs in Reduct and Lucid. He can instead just look to try and hold the bar, feed that information. See if he's able to provide any kill opportunities for the players that we've got outside on the roam. And for the time being, there's quite a few. We've got Reduct, he's made his way up as well. They're going to be at the top of main stairs. There is a Jackal, which does pose a little bit of a problem. This roam clear is going to have to come through at some point, and we're already seeing preparations made to get on in and start to clear them out.
Bodega's still yet to face any kind of roam clear, and just Hyze's presence, I think, is going to push him away. Fantasy narrowly misses out on getting a kill, and Reduct will continue on with really out without losing any HP. He knows that there are attackers nearby. Just trying to open up some of the construction wall, which could give him a better LOS. Hyze is not too far away.
Ooh, Reduct now coming under a little bit more fire. Can he get himself out? The answer is going to be no. Hyze, he's able to take him down. Still a player on Jackal's track as well. The Inox really giving a lot of value here to Furia. Bodega's made his way back onto the site. Blue Kid is maybe just looking to challenge up blue stairs. Still a minute left, so there's still a lot of things really for Furia to do here. They've not got any hatches open and they haven't got the church wall open as of yet, but they have that utility to be able to do so.
Lucid also having made his way downstairs means he can watch out for the blue stairs for now. That's where you would most likely be expecting Hyze to want to push in through. It's oftentimes the Zephyr who will take place in blue or on the blue stairs and try and push down there. And getting rid of a drone is certainly going to help with that. Because Hyze now either has to expend another one, and you can see another drone just being shot out, or he has to try and face check. C4 to follow is going to act as a deterrent, but Hyze is still going to push on forward. Not actually going to fall victim to Lucid, though, as Hyze gets the kill for himself.
It's a really big kill from Hyze. It opens up blue, and he's now able to hold a bit more of a crossfire and really start to assist the players that are going to be pushing through Church. Fantasy, he's all the way inside of the site, going to find himself one. Bodega has to push on up aggressively now, but Miracle comes through with the last. Final 2 kills going his way. Great clear from Furia.
It was a really good clear. The way that they surrounded Cash, especially on the top floor, and put all that pressure on Lucid and Reduct. Lucid, of course, got away with his life, but Reduct didn't. Okay, great. You've already got your enemy down to 4 players. The point at which oh my goodness, I can't speak. The point at which Lucid went down to Hyze was really pivotal for Furia being able to move into the site, I think, because if you are a defender down on the site, not only have you got to still be watching out for anyone who may push down main stairs or Moto if they got it open, and I don't even know if they got Moto open, but you also have to watch out for anyone who may come down blue, because as soon as the guy who's defending the blue stairs, or just blue at all, as soon as he's down, then that's a really open channel for the attackers to move down through as well. When your attention is split like that, it gives a lot more opportunity for the attackers to actually push their way into the site, which is exactly what we saw Fantasy leading the charge on doing, a Miracle not far behind him, and you're already outmanning the enemy as well, and they can just pick apart the remaining defense. So that was really good from Furia, and I'm wondering how it's going to go on this site as well, because their roam clear was really what was so pivotal for them in that one. I wonder how much MIBR are going to extend.
Let's see. Fantasy this time going to be locking in and picking the Flores. The Jackal really did assist Furia in that roam clear, but they're unlikely to have such an extensive roam to deal with here. Not just in the fact that of the difference in sight, but I agree what you say, Gio. I don't think that the strategy from MIBR to spread themselves quite thinly and to rely on winning those 1v1s is enough, because they really weren't able to win them out successfully or even get themselves any significant trades off. Wall getting opened there in rapid time, just waiting some soft breach to come on and finish the job. That Goyo shield starting to look a little bit tasty now for one of Flores' drones, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here we go. There we go.
I was like waiting in nervous anticipation. That's why I remained silent. You just come out with the Jaws music. Excellent. Well, the other Vulcan shield is over in construction, and I feel like if you can get a Flores drone all the way through cache into construction unnoticed, then Furia deserve the win. So we'll see if they manage to get to the point that they can do that, but at least they've got value out of that first drone that they used.
I mean, there is a mute in play. So at the point where you're allowing a Flores drone to get up there and to remove that shield, you've got to be asking where are you placing your mute jammers. C4 going to get shot out of the air there by Miracle. Is he going to be able to find the head as well? Lukid comes up with a huge frag over onto Rare, but it is responded to and then some. Redux, he jumps out of blue and finds himself one onto Fantasy. MIBR hanging in here after that little bit of an exchange.
I think getting rid of Fantasy as well is going to hurt. If you were relying upon your Flores to get rid of a lot of that utility, well, you might as well kiss your dreams goodbye at this point. Perhaps hiding out in cache. He's waiting to throw one of the Toxic Babe canisters because they know that two of these attackers are just waiting outside of the server wall. In goes that Zofia stun, and you can see how it's affected Bodega, but he still has the shield for support and health. Shielding, I guess. Not so much health. Either way, he can look in through the windows that are in there to provide the information to the rest of his team as to when those attackers may decide to move in. Miracle going in for a bait plant, it would appear, but Redux still hiding out in the bathroom is going to catch off Lender.
Last two players on Furia, they've got intel. I think they know where the player is inside of cache, or at least that's where he is, but got to try and do something about it. Miracle still trying to bait out those Toxic Babe canisters. 20 seconds remaining. Needs to try and get something down here, as it's likely going to come to a plant. Eyes going for the bait, but getting pre-fired on through cache. That Toxic Babe isn't going to be enough, but the C4 from Bodega is. Redux, he's going to find the final frag after a huge round, blocking things off for MIBR.
Boo Boo comes up big. Let's go. I also think that the way that Redux was playing in that round was actually really huge. Even though MIBR didn't lean massively into playing off site and extending, Redux, who ironically was the first one to be picked off in round number 1 when they were going for a really deep roam, his extension and his playing off site landed him 2 really good kills. He got one at the bottom of red, I believe it was, or it might have even been in, it was in storage, right? Yeah. When it was Fantasy who came in through the garage door into lounge, and they hadn't droned him out. They didn't know that he was waiting down there, so he got a very easy kill there. And then he moves all the way over to bathroom, where he manages to land yet another kill, because Furia haven't clearly done a really thorough droning and excavation of where the players of MIBR could be off the site. I think they just assumed maybe that they were all on the site, and that really came to hurt them. 2 kills coming from one guy, essentially doing the same thing each time. Not something that you want to be falling victim to.
I really like the pocket deployable shield as well. That I'm not sure if it was Bodega that replaced the shield at the top of those cache stairs after the Flores drone got the Vulcan shield, but it was really nice from MIBR. They were because we criticized it at the time. We were like, oh, like, how have you let that happen, sort of thing. But it was almost like, yeah, there's going to be a Vulcan shield there. They're going to get it with the Flores drone. They're going to think that they've done the job, and then we'll replace a normal deployable, and we still have something to play off. And that deployable shield essentially won MIBR the round there, because Bodega was able to get the C4 from the back of it, provide the intel as to when the push was coming in. It was a really nice little nuance.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen a mute jammer somewhere at the top of red. Yeah. You see them like hidden in amongst the barbed wire a lot of the time, and I, like you, was very surprised that they hadn't done that. But of course, with the second deployable shield, they still got value out of that position. You can't always rely on that though, which is why maybe I'd like to see the mute jammer be used a bit better next time. But regardless, MIBR took the round. They're going to be going back down to the basement this time. Yokai drone, however, is going to be playing all the way on the top, and I wonder how many of the other players are going to be joining it. Lukid, once again, up there. I would suspect the Reduct is also upstairs once again. Except this time, Bodega not on the Vigil, but instead Melusi, which could help hinder a push coming in from Furia, especially if they decide to get as aggressive as they did last time.
Especially if they leave it as late as they did last time as well. They didn't have a lot of time to play with, and a couple of well-placed Banshees would have been the big difference maker. Now, Fantasy initially was able to gather a lot of information on the IQ scanner as to where these drones were being played. It's going to be Lukid that finds the opener over onto highs. That solo push through sort of QZ and main stairs not really working. A bit of a explosion outside of East Wall as well. The pressure seems to be on Furia a little bit more this time. I'm wondering if they're missing out on that Jackal, because it does seem as though they are lacking a bit of information. Kills are going to be traded back though, and we do find ourselves at an equal 3 versus 3. As the roam clear has been all but completed, Redux, he's going to drop himself back to site.
He's actually made it back alive this time, unlike round number 1. He will be joined by Bodega and Falls all together. Yeah, Fantasy's decision to go on IQ, I assume that's going to be going directly against the Yokai drones of the Echo, but then what you lose by not bringing Jackal, that's the kind of payoff. But they are at the bottom of main stairs here, ready to push in. Did they actually open up the Moto hatch? They did not. So that's actually remained intact. Maybe they're looking to push their way simply down the bottom of the main stairs last time. I don't think they opened the Moto hatch on round number 1 either. It might be a bit harder this time.
Certainly not going to be easy when all you've got is the bottom of main stairs to try and push through, and it's kind of late in the day to start mavericking open any sort of hatch. That's going to take critical seconds that no one really has. Instead, it's going to be lines of sight that are being found. Fouls. He falls victim to one of them. Rare is going to be able to respond though. Bodega, 2 players currently down for Furia, so essentially it is a 1 versus 1. There's 5 seconds left. Bodega is in the clutch situation. He has to aggress. He has to push on up. He's got the pistol in hand. Can he get the heads up? Yes, he can. Finds the final 2. Clutches the round there for MIBR.
So a nice question at the beginning about, is Bodega going to be able to bring that much value? Is it better now that he's in? The answer so far appears to be yes. I really like this role switch that they've done for Bodega. They've taken him off of the hard support responsibilities. They've put Falls back on where he is comfortable. And instead they are slotting Bodega into a more flex position. And that has worked for him. And I actually think it almost looks like the pressure of the role is less, and therefore he is playing less pressurized. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
You know, if you lose your hard support first, you are really in trouble. If you lose your flex, especially with the kind of operators that Bodega has been playing so far, oftentimes they are ones where the utility you put down first and then you kind of get on with yourself. So even if he doesn't get any kills, the utility is still going to find value. On a Vigil, maybe that's a bit different, but on something like a Goyo or a Melusi, that is certainly a valid point. And not having to worry about that has put Bodega in a much more comfortable position. He's getting way more value because of it.
I was just watching the replay as it came in, and Miracle ended up killing himself with his own nade.
Yeah, so I reacted to it, that's why.
Didn't help at the time. I'll be honest, it would have been nice to have him up and about. I think he was already down when the nade got dropped out of his hand. He was probably in the process of throwing it, but a great round from MIBR. They should really be winning the rounds here on the defense. So it stands to reason that they're able to come away with 2 out of the 3 this far. We'll have to see if they can get themselves a good advantage here, because whilst they're able to perform on the defense, I think that the struggle is likely going to come a little bit more when they get themselves onto the attack. Still no Jackal from Furia, and honestly, aside from round number 1, they haven't looked as good on their roam clear without it.
No, not at all. And interestingly, they've decided to bring back the Flores, which, while Fantasy got a really good drone destroyal of one of the shields back in round number 2, he died shortly after that. Now, we did just hear one of those Flores drones get deployed, but I don't know what it was used on. This is interesting. Instead of using a Zephyr charge, which is what you would typically see get used to open up a Maverick tricked wall, they're going to be using a Flores drone instead. That's nice. I like that.
It's just the thing that can, isn't it? It's the little drone that could. And it can do really whatever you need it to in the moment. Certainly valuable to be able to save that Zephyr utility, especially when you've got shields to be contending with. Sure, Flores can do both, but the lifeline is a little bit more guaranteed once the ADS has been burnt, so seems like a nice little trade-off to me. Redox getting so aggressive, going for the pre-fire.
Oh no.
He's going to take a good deal of damage just due to the perspective of it. The player on the side high is actually having that angle a little bit better than Reduc did. He's going to retreat to the bathroom. The Alder in the bathroom. It's almost like a horror story at this point, Gio.
Yeah, it's not what you would want to face, but Fury aren't wasting any time in trying to get the wall open. Was that actually work? I thought that might have been a bit late, but you didn't hear the wall get open, so I guess that was it.
Eyes is still going to be able to hold these angles on the balcony. Fouls to try and stem the flow as the Toxic Babe gas comes on out. Kills starting to come in though for MIBR. Blender is going to be at the top and main stairs. Dega finds himself down. Miracle's actually got himself into the bathroom. Now there is an evil eye on his location and we can see it lighting up. We know that is going to be feeding that intel. Rare, is he going to be getting himself into a position to get a plant off Lender? This is going to be a crucial kill. Finds the one onto Raps. That's the C4 from below taken care of. Lukid has to try and aggress on through now. 1 versus 3 and already being pre-fired on. Bodega can gather a little bit of intel for him and there are some cameras still available, but very likely going to see around here for Furia. No one giving anything up and just holding angles. Lukid goes for the rotation. There's only one angle to hold in that instance. Miracle locks off the last 2 kills.
Very much surrounded there, and I think the way in which they kind of broke into the bathroom, they forced out the player who was in there, which I think was Reduct. And I really also like the way they got rid of Raps. You know, I thought it was very effective. It's so simple as well, right? It's like they just walked down the stairs and killed him, but again, he didn't know that. And even though there were things like those evil eyes that were still being left up, and MIBR had the information, they didn't know that that was happening. So Raps trying to run across the bar without realizing that Lender was sat on main stairs and could just obliterate him. That's a huge part of playing on either CCTV and cache or gym and bedroom, is being able to have control vertically and use things like C4s to deny a plant. So if the attacking team is coordinating in order to ensure that that is removed and you don't have information on that, that's a huge concern because that's a big part of your defensive strategy that's immediately taken off the board.
Let's have a look at round number 5. See which side this is going to favor. CCTV room and cache. It was a round where initially Furia got a good advantage. Relied on a little bit of a clutch coming in from MIBR to pull it off in the end. The garage control that was won and almost lost at the same time was kind of a big deciding point in it. Now, Lukid fell inside a garage. I imagine he's going to play there again. He's going to be on the Wamai. But before he fell, he was able to get a huge frag over onto Rare at the bottom of garage door. And it seemed fine at the time because it traded out 1 for 1. But then again, Furia left in that equal 3 versus 3, and with the powerful positions and then their lack of hard breach, they'd got the east wall open, but they'd not been able to get open into construction, and that was really where the problem was. Often we will see teams go for both this east wall and construction, and I'm sure that's what Furia are going to try and do here.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in that because we've had a lot of kind of the paradigm of that change over time. It used to be really popular to do east and construction, and then it moved on to just being east and garage, and construction really fell out of favor. And then over the course of SI, we saw a couple more teams actually decide to go the construction route once again. So I'm interested to see how Furia are going to approach that. They've got the east wall open already, as you can see, but currently no one directly pressuring Lukid, who's here on the garage rafters. And now he's checking his cameras to ensure that no one's coming in from lounge or there's no one directly below him in the garage doors. And it is the jacuzzi wall. Do they know that Reduct's that? Well, they do now.
Reduct was playing a little bit aggressively there, wasn't he? It's certainly given a big advantage. Furia have really switched up how they want to try and approach this, and they've dealt with Reduct straight away. Reduct was such a big part in the previous round. It makes a lot of sense to Get him out of the way nice and early. Still, just under half the round remains here for Furia to try and do something with. Lukid is going to be inside a garage. There's 2 players stacked up at the top of those main stairs, but bedroom control, and certainly bathroom control, is going to be in the hands of Furia. They now need to try and make their way through into construction. There you go. Bottom of blue stairs as the MIBR players do look to rotate. Lukid now joining everybody as well. It really seems to be a party on these red stairs. Bodega is the player that's now got himself into garage. For a time, they had given garage up entirely. Furia were a little bit too slow to try and take an advantage of that.
Now, my question here is, are Furia going to put in a concerted effort to try and take garage? Because there's a lot of time that's already been used in the round, with only about 30 seconds remaining. It would take another decent chunk of time to spread their attention all the way over to garage. I wonder if they're looking to just jump straight in which case, what value is Bodega going to have if he can jump back in as well? There is one player of Furia who's outside of garage, but most of them are inside. There's a trade, and there's Bodega finally getting rid of Highs, who was looking to aggress onto him. Lukid moving down the stairs is going to catch his own prey, and now Fantasy has just got to go in for the plant because there's only 2 remaining players here on Furia.
Ooh, Bodega, clutch or kick. Unfortunately for him, he's going to get taken out there. Fantasy able to get it down, and, well, the covering fire was there. Certainly a close round, and Furia really left it to the dying few seconds to try and get anything done there. A very questionable decision to not give Garage any attention whatsoever, but it's kind of where they lost the previous round. It made a lot of sense to go in from the other side, take that construction, take that master bedroom, and try and get a plant off inside of Cash, which eventually they were able to do. Back downstairs now for MIBR. As a 3-3 here would still be quite good for them.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. And I think MIBR have it in them to do it. You know, they came to Church as their first site. They didn't win it, but I think they were taken quite aback by the ferocity of Furia's attack. They changed things up for round number 3, and that really shut down the kind of approach that Furia wanted to go for. It slowed them down considerably towards the end of the round. And then now they probably have enough to go by in terms of their adaptations and the results of them to be able to put up a fairly decent defense here. Now, one thing I really want to look out for is the way they set up Dirt Tunnel, because unless I'm really mistaken, I have a feeling they didn't reinforce it last time. Because I remember there was just a clip of someone in Dirt Tunnel, and it was after all the reinforcements had been used, and I'm pretty sure it was soft. It didn't end up meaning anything for that round because no one from Furia was looking to regress onto Dirt Tunnel, but they could have.
We've seen that a couple of times, haven't we? Where we've seen Dirt Tunnel just sort of get... It's not forgotten about it, it's just left unreinforced. Now, there's still 2 reinforcements available for MIBR, so I'm sure they're going to have everything done that they need. But they're not going for any sort of extension this time, other than Lukid playing inside a gym. They've certainly not used their reinforcements upstairs to try and slow that push at all. Bodega playing back on the Malusi is going to allow some Banshees to be in play as well. Lukid could find himself a frag here. It really could help things along. Question is, does Highs know where he is? He's waiting for the drones to come on in. Lukid currently not droned, but still feeling the pressure. You almost get the feeling that Furia knows somebody should be there. Ooh, Lukid! Disgusting stuff. Manages to take Highs' head clean off, as I don't think Highs had a full idea that he was there. He certainly wasn't expecting to get peeked in that sort of a manner.
I also want to point out as well, this is the first time that MIBR have come here where they're not running an Echo. So they don't have yokai drones upstairs, and I suspect the reason that Raps is on Legion instead is because they know how effective the Malusi was in slowing down Furia's push. So they've brought in another operator with a very similar way of working to lean into that. It means that they lack the information upstairs, and I suspect that's a big part of the reason why MIBR are actually starting to recall those players. Although it is kind of standard that at this point in a round, you would expect roamers to move back towards the site. And that is going to really strongly reinforce what's going on downstairs, because if Furia do want to push in, even if they aren't slowed that much by the utility, they're then going to have to face 5 defenders.
Still, Gumine's able to be tossed on out as well. Raps is kindly generating those over time, and I think the fact that he's not left the site means it's likely going to be full at this moment in time, so it's going to be a very difficult place to be. Looking now to start getting some hatches open. Fantasy this time playing on Ace, so he really is flexing his operator pool here tonight. 35 seconds remain. We're still looking for a solid point of ingress. We can see hotspots now getting smoked off. Bottom of Moto hatch is going to receive all of the Toxic Babe canisters, as Fowls really doesn't want to have to worry about that. We can hear Gumines in the distance as well as kills starting to fly. Miracle, he's bottom of main stairs. Going to try and get some frags out, see if there's anything that he can find, but currently 2 versus 4. Finds himself a freebie over onto Rare. Lender's inside of Arsenal as well, but he will eventually fall. Miracle, you've got to do it all, mate. Finds himself a second. He's got 2 more to find. He's pre-firing as best as he can. Raps is there to close things out. Picks up the final kill, and MIBR finished their split at an equal 3-3.
Once again, a really solid example of MIBR using their adaptations to directly target the way that Furia like to play. It took Furia a lot longer to even try and push on the roamers that they could so easily bulldoze through back in round number 1. So that wasted a lot of their time because both of those roamers got away alive. And then if you're Furia, you still have to push down to the site itself. And that requires you to have a pretty decent idea of what's happening on the floor below you, as well as the basement floor where the site actually is. And then on top of that, your actual push into the site is significantly slowed, partially because of utility, partially because of how many members of the defending team are actually alive. Overall, I would say that over the course of the 3 Church Arsenal sites from MIBR, it was a really good example of how gradual adaptation really helps out when going against an attacking team who have a certain MO. Well, now Furia are on the defense, and it's their opportunity to do the same thing. I'm wondering how aggressive they're going to play their defense, because they look like they are also leaning into the very similar to, you know, the old SSG style roam, where you have a very heavy roam, really deep all across the entire map on a number of different floors, and then you eventually recall them down to the site. But it makes it so hard for the attackers to clear out. And a comment that you made at the start of the Playday, Ollie, was that you reckon that it's on the attack that MIBR will suffer the most if their synergy isn't where it needs to be, because you need to be way more coordinated. So if they're going up against an SSG roam that wastes a lot of time as it is, they could find that coordination really being challenged.
Well, this is where we get the answer to that question. Let's see how Furia are able to stack up. They, too, are going for this aggressive... I was going to say aggressive roam. I wasn't going to say aggressive jumping out of windows at people. Reduct. He's going to fall. That's your ace. You have lost 1 out of 3 hard breaches as MIBR.
They got plenty in the back of their pocket.
They're looking for that sort of redundancy, aren't they? They're not not taking any chances here. Raps, he's able to find the one back as a trade. This round is moving fairly quick. It's very akin to the way that we saw Furia approach their round number 1. Now, Fancy going to get challenged once again. He's just getting caught out being a little bit too aggressive there. And MIBR are really letting them play into that style. Rare could do something at the top of main stairs here, but damage initially done to Furia.
Oh, nearly gets caught out, throws out the impact, but he's going to completely overshoot it. And Falls knows exactly where the location of this player is, but he himself is not actually going to overextend. And I think that's a good thing. That's what I was worried that Rare was going to do, especially after the death of Fantasy. You don't want to be getting too overzealous in those engagements. I'm wondering... Furia mostly back down? Yeah, all 3 of them are back down on the basement now. I'd imagine that MIBR have probably read into that, and you can see them going for the dirt tunnel to try and make a push in through from this direction.
Well, you mentioned the dirt tunnel previously, Gio. Now we're seeing MIBR looking to really sort of flex that man advantage they've got. That's something I feel like you can do once you have a little bit of an advantage, is you can start to try and challenge on, but you've got to be aware that someone like Rare could be looking to challenge equally as aggressively onto it. Bodega grabbed himself a frag in the meantime. likely from stock hatch, as that's the position that he's going to be in. Still an advantage here for MIBR, but not a lot of time left. This is where the coordination could come into question. Dega, he has the diffuser. He's going to try and get that down somewhere. We hear the smoke canisters go off to provide the cover. How is that not a headshot, Highs? No, he's going to fall. Unfortunate for him. Raps really popping off inside of this round. So much information available here for Rare. He's going to try and pre-fire it out, but he will get pre-fired himself, as there are 3 of them and 1 of him. MIBR, first round on the attack.
Looking pretty good at it too, but I think some of that was handed to them because of the way that Furia played rather aggressively. So while I definitely commend MIBR for taking the first attack and at this point the lead, you can't entirely hand them the credit for why that happened, because had Furia played with a bit more discipline earlier on in the round, I think they would have been able to put up a lot more of a fight and make it much harder for MIBR to actually take the gunfights later on to push in through and successfully attack onto the site. I would like to see Fantasy not get too ahead of himself. He is a very, very talented player, and he is great at aggressive gunfights. But you can't be overly cocky, and I'm a pretty strong proponent of the idea that, especially if you're on defense, you don't have to go to your opponent. They have to come to you. So you don't need to overpeak at times where it's unnecessary, and I think that is a trap that he fell into in that round.
There certainly was a lot of over-aggression there from Furia, and it really did cost them. You get the feeling that if they come away from that early roam game not as battered and bruised, that they would be able to provide something a little bit more substantial in the later part of the round. See if they choose to play things a little bit differently here and now. Because already they've changed site, which usually is an indication that something quite substantial went wrong. They're going to be going to gym and bedroom, looking to try and make amends and really run MIBR ragged. I think this is the site, Geo, that you can really start to pressure the attackers on, in that you can hold cash, you can hold construction, and you can give them so many headaches and problems to solve.
Definitely, because if you're attacking onto this site, the ideal way to go about it is to come from those multiple angles, whether you're coming in from the east side as well as Jacuzzi, or if you're sending someone down in through logistics as well. I mean, obviously here we can see that MIBR are putting pressure onto CCTV, but they haven't actually quite found the mute jammer that they're looking for. Finally, they remove it, and that can get the exothermic charge going on the wall. But the defender of Furia who was in there has been sent scattering.
Fancy's got a nice narrow angle to hold. Going to be able to keep a good eye on whoever makes their way on through. Furia do seem to have gone into that let's just hold a power position mode with anyone but Fantasy out on the roam. Anyone but Fantasy is allowed out on the roam. That seems to be what the call was inside of this round. Files is going to be able to make that cross. You can only imagine that Fantasy actually stopped holding that angle, and he did. He's going to be inside of Cash, looking to go for a swing. Beautiful pre-fire. Going to be able to take down Fowls. Is he going to be able to find himself the second, though? There's a lot of shots coming on in. He's going to be jackal tracked for a time, as if anybody needed confirmation that he was inside of the cache with the noise and the mess that is going on through. The Pokeball comes out. Highs takes the kill there with the impact. Fantasy a second.
No!
This is such a great defensive hold from Furia.
Oh, but it was almost like the vibration from the hard breach meant that Lucad's crosshair just went flying and ensured that Fantasy got the kill. That's so unfortunate. And now the diffuser, you can see it's on the other side of the building, and it's just Reduct left on the side of MIBR. He has utility. He has one Selma left. He has a couple of breaching rounds, but of course, Ace doesn't carry smokes anymore, so he can't rely on any obscurity that he otherwise would have been able to, and he's really just got to face check everything himself. Falz was watching one of those flank drones, but it has now changed. Reduct gets one kill onto Fantasy. He's just going in for the kills at this point. He doesn't entirely know the location of these defenders.
Ooh. Rare knew the location of him. Beautiful C4 through the hatch. Anyone that was watching that round wondering why the hatch is open, that is exactly why. You're able to get a nice C4 on through. It isn't opened by the attackers. Typically, it is opened by the defenders. Not only does it give you a little bit less square meterage to stand in, but you can also get a nice C4 from below, as that is an entirely hard concrete floor. Furia respond. Seriously got a game on our hands, Gio.
I like it. I'm enjoying this. This is better than a 7-1.
Oh, absolutely.
I appreciate it. It's great. And especially as this was one that when we go back to the pre-game, it was really hard to judge who we thought was going to win. Now, I've been told that we do have the shaky crosshair replay where Lucid kind of... there we go. He was aiming and he was going to get the shot onto Fantasy. Whether or not he would have won that 1v1, something else entirely. We will never know. But as soon as the wall gets breached, and he's just in the middle of an earthquake, it made it a lot easier for Fantasy, and that was a very unfortunate death there for Lucid, I think.
Good old screen shake there for Lucid. If you've not got enough problems on your plate, trying to go 7 and 6 and really put a shift in. 4-4, downstairs we go. Let's see if Furia are going to try and change tactic. Their lineup would suggest that they are, as they haven't gone for the classic Mute Mozzie combination, which we've seen pretty much every single round we've seen this side play, Gio, regardless of the side. I think we've always seen a Mute and Mozzie in the mix. Instead, Furia this time, they've gone for more tried and true methods, such as the Maestro and, more importantly, I guess the Cade. Going to try and keep control of that Moto hatch, at least for a time. Force Files into a position to try and Maverick it. No Hibana as well means that you can, of course, Cade that kitchen hatch and cause a little bit more time waste and utility wastage there. And I guess the main thing that this does is it sort of makes the Jackal a lot less valuable.
Yeah, I can see that. This is, as you say, pretty much the first time that we've seen them not really stupendously lean into a roam. I mean, is there anybody who's off-site? It actually looks like all 5 of them are down in the basement, doesn't it? So even Lender, who's present on a Malusi, kind of, and Fantasy, I guess, on Jaeger, who you would more expect to be kind of roaming operators. As it stands, everybody's downstairs. I don't think that's what MIBR are expecting. The Jackal track may be able to give them something. It's just about whether or not they can act on any of the information that they derive from it. And, as you say before, they're going to really... Well, I was going to say they're going to really struggle to open up the kitchen hatch, but it's wide open. It's a gaping.
Let's see if they're going to be able to try and make use of that. The kitchen floor is starting to be open now. Pre-fire comes on in. Lender going to take a chunk of damage. Able to keep himself alive, though. Rare now going to join on in. See if he can spot anybody out through the floor. Still a minute left and everybody alive. It isn't an unusual position to be in on Clubhouse on this site. Read it, though. He's going to get himself down and finished off there as Rare's able to confirm that kill. He's got the Alder, so he can pre-fire all day through this floor. Raps just hitting a reload, finding some safety. Bodega trying to put some pre-fire down and will, in fact, assist Raps in finding that kill whilst he picks up a second. Able to take down Lender. Advantage has been found here by MIBR. Can they try and convert on it here? Eyes is going to be playing at the bottom of these main stairs. Raps unlikely to check that, especially with a ping to try and distract him. Looking to smoke long. Goes for the Inox. Isn't initially going to be anybody there. Where is his attention going to be as soon as he pushes on through? It's going to be where it needs to be. Eyes is just better. 2 kills come in for Furia. Blue Kid now is left in the clutch. 1 versus 2 makes it 1 versus 1 very quickly. Those smokes paying big dividends for him. He's going to push into church. He doesn't have the diffuser. He's just pre-firing desperately. Furia, take it on time.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I think that change in defensive strategy threw a spanner in the works for MIBR. And they were still pretty quick with, opening up the hatches, opening up the kitchen floor, losing a reduct very early certainly didn't help. And of course, we saw in action the fact that the Inox simply wasn't going to add enough value because of the way that Furia had set up their defense. Great kill from Highs as well. Just the reaction time was fantastic. And you know, MIBR still kind of battled their way in through the fray once they got down into the basement. But when you look at the fact they didn't have the diffuser, everything leading up to that point had meant that more time was spent getting to a certain part of the round than maybe they'd initially anticipated. The whole thing was kind of working against them and off for them. But because of how close this game has been so far, it doesn't put MIBR particularly far behind for Furia to have taken that round. And what we do know is that at minimum, we will, or Furia will match how well they did against MIBR back in Stage 1. So we've already guaranteed ourselves a minimum of a 7-5 loss for Furia. But something tells me that this is more likely to be an overtime game.
That's a really cheery way to look at it for Furia as the 1 round up currently.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true. It is a factual statement, so we will let it slide. The chance of MIBR winning 3 rounds in a row in this game has been essentially 1-for-1 since the side switched. It's probably pretty slim, isn't it? And I agree. Overtime is more than on the cards. Not sure who gets the attack in the overtime. If we could find that out, that would be fantastic, because that would really start to paint a bit of a picture as to how this game is going to go, because it is Clubhouse and defense has been doing pretty well today, although rounds have been coming for the attackers. It really depends on that opening engagement and which direction it falls in. Furia trying to hold on now inside of CCTV and Cash, extend this 1 round lead to 2 and put themselves on a match point.
Not a total open rotation into the garage from Furia's setup. They just have the softball being punched out so that there's a line of sight that can be held. That player in garage raft isn't actually going to be able to go anywhere. Now you can see one of the Vulcan shields has already been destroyed. And another Forest drone got sent straight in. Unless I'm mistaken, Ollie, this is the first time that we've seen MIBR take up the Forest, right?
I think so, yeah. I haven't really seen them lean into it too much. MIBR are one of those teams that are usually pretty set in their operators. Whereas like Furia, this time I feel like Fancy's played someone different nearly every time, especially on the attack.
Well, I guess we'll find out how much value that brings for MIBR, but when you're going up against operators like Goyo, it is a really good option because, I mean, you want to remove those Vulcan shields and you want to do it as fast as you can, and you also want to do it ideally in a situation where you don't have to get into anyone's line of sight. Lender is going to be the first casualty of this round as Raps finds a kill onto him, and that means that the idea for C4s to be played down below, not so much going to be available. Although as I say that, Rare literally got a kill with a C4 onto Lukid. So I guess it still happened. Lender got avenged in that sense. MIBR still looking to push up from underneath the garage and clear that out as well.
Pressure coming in now to Fantasy inside of the garage. Fowles is going to look to try and aggress onto him. Fantasy nearly had a great little hiding spot there, but I imagine didn't have the line of sight. Big heavy push up through Cash stairs is going to result in 1 kill for Rap, but unable to finish the second. The down player will be revived. Miracle gets himself back on up. Still 3 smoke canisters to try and play with. Bodega's got to go huge. Cannot find 1. Rare as well, picking the final kill over onto Fowles. Garage control not coming to all too much. Furia, they put themselves on a match point.
This is... Wait. Yeah, other than round 3, that's the first time that one of these teams has gotten 2 rounds ahead of another one. So, you know, Furia tearing away with it. And I think maybe this is where we are seeing some of the flaws come in from the attack on MIBR's side. And I think part of that also comes down to MIBR expecting a defense that they're not getting. You know, if we look back at round number 9, where Furia brought in the very anchor-heavy defense for the basement defense, it was evident that MIBR weren't expecting that kind of defensive lineup based on what it was that they had brought and the way that they were trying to approach that attack. In that last round, I don't think it's so much that Furia brought out something crazy. You know, MIBR struggled to deal with their garage setup, for example. They struggled to deal with Rare even after they brought down their first kill of the Goyo. So there was still that play that was happening downstairs that was causing them a problem and not allowing them to take garage control, even though they had very specifically gone in to try and take downstairs control. But maybe they weren't quite anticipating it to be as strong as it was. Just things like that. It doesn't have to be a huge deal, but the point is just these small things that MIBR aren't necessarily ready for or expecting that they suddenly have to try and play against and aren't always in the best position to do so.
Pressure on for MIBR here and now. This roam clear really has gone kind of one or two ways for them throughout the course of this game. Going to be attacking into Gym, a site where they did see problems previously. Initial focus going to be at maybe clearing out the players that are going to be occupying the bar level. Rare. That was a short, sharp tap of a Vector. That's going to see Redux taken on out. Not ideal when your ace is going to be entry on in ahead of your Ash, but I guess it doesn't matter when Raps dies as well. Starting the round off 5 versus 3, this surely can't be in the plan, Gio.
No, probably not, especially given that Furia are on map point, or match point, I should say. So that really wasn't part of the plan. It's going to be hard for them to actually push in as well. They're going to have to use projectile utility most likely to even make it in through the jacuzzi wall. And now that Furia have heard that be open, they know that there are going to be people in this doorway. Sent out a nade. Didn't quite do anything. And here another one falling. That's going to be very close to Miracle, and so he's got to watch out for the logistics hatch. So far, MIBR, it's very risky for them to actually make a push in, but they have to do it, because otherwise those Aruni gates are just going to regenerate.
MIBR are really just getting chipped on down here. We see a C4 attempted there onto Lukid. It's just going to deal a huge chunk of damage and essentially put him onto one shot. Maybe we're going to try and attempt a plant in the smoke now. There is a C4 below, potentially, if it hasn't already been used, but Rare has expended his. They have been playing a little bit aggressively. Fouls will find the kill onto Lender, but the plant does go down, so all isn't lost. Lender is going to find Bodega with the Suri gate. That's the first time I think we've seen that happen. Fantasy, he picks up onto Fouls. Lukid. The players are stacking up a little bit for him. Bit of an aggressive jump out here, but it is not to be. Highs, he finds that final frag. With a man count advantage, Fury could throw themselves at that one and claim this game.
Yep, Furia finally pulling it through in the last couple of rounds, and I just want to point out as well that that position that Lukid was in at the end is the exact reason why you go in for an east side push if you're attacking onto this site, because he knew that there was someone over in construction, because guess what? Hadn't been cleared out by the attackers. I think MIBR put up a really good game considering the circumstances, and they made massive improvements compared to what we saw last weekend. However, by the end, it simply wasn't enough, and Furia seemed to always bring out something that MIBR, to whatever extent, just weren't ready to deal with. And for those last 3 rounds, that ended up being the nail in the coffin for them. Furia needed that first map that we saw last week to warm up, but it seems that they are back on track.
Furia there coming out with a good showing. 9 kills for everybody on the side as well, apart from Lender, who just had to get 10. He just had to be a little bit better, make up for his performances last week. It's going to feel pretty good for them. MIBR, you know, it isn't necessarily fair to judge them as we have been used to when they're at full strength. Obviously, playing with a substitute is doing a little bit of damage to them and their coordination, and that's kind of showing through in the gameplay, right? But you can't take anything away from Furia. He played that exceptionally well. Something I really liked about that play and that game as a whole, Gio, was how quickly Furia adapted to the mistakes. An extended roam isn't working? Guess what? We're going to go somewhere else, and when we go back to that site, we're not going to roam at all. We're just going to sit on the site and we're going to win the round that way. And you could see the decisions being made there by Furia, and eventually they were the team that were able to flip the script and win 3 rounds in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was really a fantastic game there from Furia, and it just shows this relatively young team who weren't that special last year. They are just constantly adding value to the way that they play and really increasing the depth that they have to offer every time they step into the competitive sphere. But let's bring Chunks back in so that we can have a proper discussion about this game that actually went to a real scoreline this time.
Yeah, it was a close one. And you know what, Ollie, you mentioned something that I really wanted to touch on there, and that is the fact that Furia were able to switch things up. They saw that having roamers going out and everyone playing super split didn't work out. They were able to condense. I want to ask you, though, Gio, how do you think that affected MIBR? Because, you know, they started off on the attacking side pretty strong, being able to take down those roamers, but unfortunately, having everyone center up and play it slow, it maybe caught MIBR a little bit off guard.
I mean, the way that MIBR were playing after that doesn't suggest to me that they were mentally, kind of messed from that. I don't think they sort of lost themselves in the game. They actually seemed pretty focused on what it was they were doing. It just so happened that there were a number of rounds where Furia had kind of outpaced them in what it was that they were thinking about doing and the way that they approach things. And that's fine. There's always going to be a team that come out on top in the strategy. I mean, that's the whole point of competition, right? Regardless of what it is, it doesn't have to be Rainbow Six. And if anything, I just think it was a really good game. We saw some good siege. We saw MIBR show some promising things on their side and a number of things that didn't work out for them when they were attacking. Had Furia done maybe one or two things slightly differently, maybe they would have worked out. And to me, that still suggests quite positive, optimistic things for MIBR, regardless of the fact that they only took that first attacking round.
Yeah, I mean, we have to point out as well, the first half, it could have gone either way. Every team was getting round for round, trade for trade, but in the end, it was Furia that took it towards the end of the match. Ollie, I gotta ask, that first half, it felt like it could have gone either way. Were you maybe a little bit nervous about that Furia prediction, or when it came to the attacking half, when you realized that, and you mentioned this earlier, the attacking half, when you're playing with a substitute, is when those weaknesses start to shine. Was that where you were feeling confident,
I mean, I wasn't feeling confident. I'm just going to sit there and watch some Siege. It doesn't matter what the game is like for me. But in my prediction, yes, I think so. We kind of said it at the start, didn't we? We led into the fact that, it is going to be much more difficult on the attack. So for me, that was what I was expecting there from MIBR. They had a great defensive showing and they're able to sort of plug those holes that they're left with playing with a substitute on defense, but on attack's really where it starts to show.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I am interested to see how that went, though, for Furia to be able to take the win right now, as we do have Twister, the coach for Furia. How are you doing, Twister? How did that game feel for you?
Hello there. Good evening for everyone. Is the microphone
There we
working?
go. We got you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
How you doing, man?
We're really good. I hope you guys are doing good as well. This was a very important match for us, winning against MIBR. Since last season, I believe we don't win a match against them, and we knew that it would be a hard one because Bodega would be playing, so it's tough.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you guys did extremely well that game, and we touched about this just after the game then, about how you guys were able to adapt your playstyle when you moved over to defense. It looked like you were going to start playing a bit of a roam-heavy playstyle, but that didn't work out in round one, so you switched it up immediately. Was that a conscious decision from you guys?
Actually, that was the captain call-out. Landa said to the team that they were a little bit slow on execution, because when you are playing with a coach or a player that is not used to the game and is not used to all the threats, it makes everything harder. So we try to play in defense some closed play style where we were every time with aim crossed and just waiting for my BR to finalize the attacks, but they couldn't because they were not too good on attack. That's why they could make 3 defense with us with Bodega playing, but attack is a little bit harder in Clubhouse.
I was really interested in the way that you guys changed your defensive strategy between round 7 and round 9, because in round 7 you really went for the roam, and MIBR beat you. Round 9 you went for quite an anchor strategy, and with everyone playing down on the basement, and that seemed to really slow MIBR down. And of course, it meant that they couldn't really get much value out of the use of their jackal. Do you think that they expected you to do that? And what was it that made you guys want to do it in the first place?
Actually, first of all, I believe they expected something like that because they were bringing Jackal to help in the room game against us, and I believe they were trying to find some kills and something to make the execution easy for them as they were playing without a real player there. But at that time of the stage, they couldn't do nothing, you know. Even if we make an anchor strategy in the bomb site, it wouldn't change a thing because their execution was slow and it was not that good.
I was just laughing then, Twister. Sorry, everyone taking a photo in the background. We could all see him getting in for a selfie. The question that I wanted to ask, it pertains to fantasy. It's about fantasy. We saw him playing a lot of different operators here in this game. Typically, he plays a bit of Ashe, a bit of Zofia, something along those sort of lines, maybe the Jackal, but he was really playing a lot here. Is he developing as a player?
Yeah, of course. Fantasy, it's a really smart player. He's very intelligent, and he's able to play every role in the game. But as he have a very good aim and a very good skill game, we put him in the entry frag in the entry frag positions. But on Clubhouse specifically, he has a more special role. That was the flex one, because he plays on the other side of the map and do basically whatever he wants.
I gotta ask you, Twister, we spoke about fantasy right there and how it felt like every round on the defense he was kind of switching operators. For me as a casual player, what's the strength of having a player who's able to switch roles, and even while playing out on flex, trying to get aggressive onto the team, having that wide range of operators that you're confident playing?
First, sorry about the webcam. I believe it's
It
off.
happens.
You're fine.
But I still hearing you guys. I believe every player in this team have potential to do every role in the game, and every good team have to have players to do every role. You know, even with people that know how to play in other positions, you make the team synergy better, as you know what your teammate needs and what your teammates don't need, what he can help you and what he can't help you. That makes a team stronger. So it's not just fantasy, it's Landa, it's Hair, it's Miracle, it's Ice, and even the frags in this match just shows everyone that we are a very I missed the word for it, but everyone is at the same level, you know. Everyone's
Right,
equal.
yeah. I'm very interested because Clubhouse for you, until today, your team had not won against a Brazilian team on Clubhouse in a very long time. What was the reason for wanting to go there, and do you think you'll be visiting Clubhouse more in the future?
I believe Team One visited Clubhouse because they tried to play that for the same reason that you already said. We didn't win against a Brazilian team, and it's the Clubhouse course for us. We don't win Clubhouse in a while, but we are very confident in this map, you know. So we just needed to play a map, and it's a strategically heavy map. So playing without a player would make everything difficult for them. So we were expecting a easiest game.
Well, it looks like you were able to break the curse eventually. Hopefully that's good things for going forward on Clubhouse. Thank you so much for joining us, man. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Apologies about the little technical issues.
No, I'm sorry. Pleasure was mine. Thank you for the invite, and thanks for every fan.
Hey, thank you so much once again. But that is it for match number 1. Still 3 more ahead of us. I'm super excited for them. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes with game number 2 of the evening.